Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for inviting me.
Yay. So, what I like to do is just kind of hear about people's journey, like their background, like general, like where you're from, what do you do, and then kind of like how did you decide to go after your PhD? So, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I did my undergrad at San Jose State, and I got my undergrad in psychology, just general psych. And then, honestly, when I first went into college, I knew I liked psychology, but I wasn't quite sure what I could do with it until I joined a clinical lab. I think in my junior year, so I actually started pretty late. And I just thought, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, you could actually study like topics that were interesting and then actually apply it. And then I just got really hyped up in research, and then I applied to work at a lab at Stanford. And then so got more experiences there because I was really interested in like kind of how does culture influence like I guess how we think about clinical like I think I had a really hard time trying to like mix or like kind of mix or combine those two because there's not a lot of multicultural work in clinical psych, um, which is kind of sad. But I knew I didn't want to go into counseling because that was more of like normal development and prevention work, which is also really important, but just not where like my niche was. Um, so yeah, I applied to um, Eastern Michigan as my master's degree and got more experiences in specifically behavioral psychology. And then I worked as a clinician, like a therapist, on the side for like during my master's degree. Like that was part of my training. Like I had to do a practicum, like a 500-hour practicum. And then luckily I got my job after that. Like I stayed at the same place. So that was pretty cool. And like I loved doing the clinical work part, but then that's also where I figured out like parts that where I didn't like it was kind of a little too, I guess, individualized because I was in a private practice, and it was like just me and my supervisor, and I thought it was a little boring. Like there was not a lot of like intellectual stimulation and not a ton of like teamwork. Um, so yeah, I think that's the part that I really like about working in a lab, that I get to like um, kind of talk about the science with people and then go to conferences. Uh,
Yeah, I love that part too. It's hard to put your finger on because it's not like your work was bad, right? It's not like you had a
yeah,
bad at all, but you're like, but I know it could be better, and I know I could do more, and I know like,
yeah.
yeah, and exactly that makes sense. So you did undergrad, you did your master's, you've been working, and then did you apply to your PhD? Tell me that you applied
Um,
earlier.
yeah. I applied. So I graduated in 2020, which was like in the midst of COVID, and I knew that like I couldn't, like I didn't want to like adjust to a new job while like applying and all at the same time. So I basically did 1 year after I graduated. Like I worked full year 1 year, and then I applied um, to enter the following year. So I did get into a program last year, so I would have been the fall 2021 cohort. They didn't assign me to work with the professor that I originally applied to work with. I was like kind of hesitant that I would be doing kind of work with a different population that I really wasn't quite sure I would like it. Like it was working with older adults, which I think is it's like it's very in need. Never worked with them before, and I wasn't quite confident.
So you applied a previous cycle, you got into
Yeah,
one school, but you didn't
yeah,
feel like it was going to give you a great experience. And
yeah.
yeah, it's a
So
commitment.
Right, like it was like a huge commitment. I think I was at the part where I also was doubting myself a lot about whether I still enjoyed this work or not. Like, to be honest, like I was I was so burnt out from clinical work, and also living in the Midwest. Like it's not where I grew up in, and like it was too cold. I was like too far away from family and friends, and the school that I got into was also in the Midwest. So I was like, another 5 years, not quite sure. But it turned out to be a great program. You know, I think they have a really strong clinical and um, industrial organization
But
psychology program.
you turn them down. You're
Yes,
like,
yes,
yes.
I turned.
I think that's
It was very tough decision,
I
but I did.
yeah, because like you have this unknown. You're like, I could say no to this, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But
Yeah.
also, you make a good point. Like geography is important to some people, a lot of people actually, and you have to be real. Like I don't want to live in the cold, and that's real. So
Yeah.
unless
And
it's yeah, go ahead.
right. I was gonna say that, like, my undergrad mentor always said, like, she's like, yeah, for her, like, geography wasn't, like, she doesn't think that should be the priority when you're looking at programs. It should be based on your interests. And yeah, I agree with that too, I think to some level. And I think COVID also, you know, was a big, um, like, I guess, point of determination for me to like reevaluate things. Like, I think for me, like going back home is, I feel like it's kind of tough because it's so far away. Like my I should say my family's not like in California anymore. Like most of them are in Taiwan. And I get like super bad motion sickness there. So like on the plane, I like puke my way there.
Oh.
So yeah, so it's just like I don't know. For me, it was like the school I got into was also like an hour and a half drive from the airport, and there was no direct flights to the airport from Taiwan. Yeah, I just
Yeah,
had
I
to.
think considering your lifestyle, your wants and needs is also important because a lot of people quit midway through their PhD, right? Because of a
Yeah,
lot of factors. And maybe, like, right, maybe you don't want to get in a position where you're likely to quit because you're not with family or accessible to family. And yeah,
yeah.
makes sense.
I think right, and I think that, and when I did my master's, I was all like head on, like I didn't care like how far away I was. And so I think it depends also where you are, like, you know, you said lifestyle wise too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Um,
2 years is different than four. It's all, there's a lot of math there.
yeah, and also I just want to say, like, yeah, I turned it down. It was a very hard decision. Like, I was like so confused as I was like, oh, like this is what I always wanted to do, and now I kind of have a chance to take a stab at it, but like something just felt really like quite. I wasn't quite sure. Like it was for me.
Okay. Okay. So walk us through then. How did you how did you decide to apply again? Because of course you talked about like the stress, the burnout,
Yeah,
the self-doubt of like, well, I
yeah,
don't even know if I'll get in again. So how
yeah,
did you decide? How did you
yeah.
do it again?
I well, I think multiple parts. Like, I was very lucky that I met one of the students that in in a program that I really wanted to go to, like the one that I actually got in this round. I met him a few years ago at a conference, and then we had also like a common friend in between. And so I met up with this like friend we had in common, and I think she ended up telling him that, like, hey, like, send me to get in. And like and he was like, he thought it was like a bummer that he thought I should try again. And like I wanted to at that point. I already wrote up like my personal statement with you. But I just feel like I didn't feel really confident in in applying again. And so I met up with him like over Zoom, and like he was like, you like like I'm pretty sure we're taking students this round. You should definitely try again, and if you want me to like look over your letter, I can totally do that. And so like after I wrote the letter though, I just felt like honestly I felt even uncertain because I was like, my application really hasn't changed that much. I felt like experience wise, I hadn't like experience wise it seemed the same on paper. Um, so I talked to my undergrad professor. I reached out to her because I told her that like, and I was like, I I wasn't sure if I could if I should still apply this round. That I don't have any I think outstanding like additional new experiences. And she was like, um, do you think you could do you think you could withstand another round of no's? And I was like, yes, I think so. Yeah, after what happened the previous year, I was like, yeah, it already got like super hard, and I kind of still overcame it. So I was like, yeah, I think I'd be devastated, but I could still handle that round of no's. And so she was like, then I would just apply. And she said, I think actually this is the perfect time for you to apply because um, of what was going on, like socially and politically. Like there was a lot of kind of talk within psychology as well. Like I think the APA, like the American Psychological Association, came out with an apology of contributing to like racism, like using our science. And so she was like, since your interests kind of fall in line with that, with different cultures, I think you should apply. And she was like, use your voice. She said that. And I was like, okay. I read my personal statement again. I was like, am I using my voice for this particular kind of, I guess, mission in a way? Like, yeah. And I felt like something was missing. But I just, at that point, I really didn't know, like, how to change it. I felt like I gave it my all. Like, I kind of like just like emailed the student really quick again and got connected, and he read over it. So I gave him kind of both the version that you and I had worked on and the previous version that I wrote, which I got into one program that I didn't eventually go to. And we kind of took parts, I think, from both, because like I think your version really highlighted like what I had done, put it into more of, I would say, like a story instead of just like a laundry list of like, oh, these are my accomplishments. But like so that part was like the highlights. I took those highlights into my like new statement and really ask questions like, what were my interests? What did I want to like? Why do I want to do this PhD?
I think
Yeah.
you're talking about something that's really important to highlight is that you are the expert in you and also your area of expertise, right? Like, so you're going to take everything that we work on and you're going to make it better. And also, it's not necessarily a one and done. Like, I think, see, you developed a skill, and obviously you had the skill before we worked together, but it got stronger as we worked together of writing, asking questions, and being critical. And so you just improved that skill again and again and again until it got better and better and better. And then,
I think what you said about like kind of like you're the expert of X, Y, Z, but I think I think this is where like I had trouble of like I guess really having that voice of like how did I want to present myself as the expert in X, Y, Z, and I don't know, I just like happened to read this quote out of a book. It was something, so I ended up with something about because the education system in Taiwan is very different than the US. So I had a lot of difficulties when I came here. But then I learned to take a more like holistic view at it. These are both cultures that I love and question, and also like learning
Mm-hmm.
to appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and there were like parts of it that I was, I guess, a little bit scared to disclose, like more personal stuff. Like I like part like where I think the education system exposed me to a lot of like punishment and like shaming, and that's like part of their, I guess, one part of the culture. Two, it was like more it it was like, I guess, abnormal. Like I just had really bad luck. I got a really bad teacher. But it it is like embedded in part of the culture as like a way to like discipline
Okay.
kids, which is, yeah. But like I did disclose that in my personal statement, like in a, I guess, relatively professional way, like, but it was like a big part. Like I guess I acknowledged it, that it was a big part of why I'm on this journey, why I got interested in psychology, like the way that people behave and the way that people learn. Yeah.
What do you what do you like, what's your vision for the work you're going to do? Like, you know, are you going to cure cancer, or like what's like, give me some high level thing of like, I would hope to do this.
Let me take a sec
Mhm.
to think about how to word that. I think one of my visions is to be able to contribute to clinical psych. Like, for example, like I wanted to work at the VA for a very long time, and doing research and clinical work there, and really bring in kind of like awareness of multicultural issues, and how to address those, like in a I I won't I wa- yeah, in a systematic way, and also in kind of with a social justice lens as well, like taking into the larger system that that is at hand, instead of, and not like just focusing on the individual.
Cool.
So like
Okay.
systemic changes.
Perfect. Um, for, with systemic changes through a
Hmm.
multicultural like population as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So why did you decide to do the Fearless Grad program?
I don't even know if I had it in me to like apply again. But I think applying to the program and you having these like kind of agenda, and also like you keep asking these like questions, and it got me like thinking, okay, why did I want to do this? And I think a lot of it is in the action, like, of me actually reaching out. So I was also applying to jobs at the same time, and there was one job where I applied to. I didn't know it was like it was like a higher level entry job when I applied. Um, and I eventually, I mean, like, got to the interview, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're looking for like a postdoc to fill this position." And I'm like, like, what the hell? But yeah, it was but it was in that moment, one of the that yeah, that moment particularly, that I was like, you know what, I am actually really interested still in this work. Um, and I had actually had a lot of fun in the conversation.
Okay. Sounds like you were looking, for support mostly of like, and just to keep you moving and to not get sidetracked and to kind of get to that finish line and obviously improve all of your skills along the way. So why do you think you were so successful this round? So how many schools did you apply to, and
Oh,
where did you get in,
yeah,
and how did
yeah.
that work?
I took a a kind of bolder move. I only applied to 4 schools, 4 programs. I
And
think
how many did you apply to last time?
I applied to 9 last time.
Okay, so this was
And
better. 4 is
yeah,
better.
this was a lot better. And I actually had another. I applied previously before that round, and I applied to 12.
Okay.
So 4 is yeah. But I figured it had to be like 4 that I was very interested in, and that I would really want to go, like, if I got in. It started out though kind of bad because the 2 programs that got back to me first were I didn't get any interviews, and one of them I even got an interview last round. So I was like very perplexed, and I was just like, oh, shoot, I'm not gonna get in. And then that's when I think about a week later or 2 weeks, I started hearing back, and I heard back from Hawaii and Boston. And yeah, I was like so excited. And I think this round I have to say I am like way more relaxed, like about, I think both about the interview and the outcome.
That's awesome. That's such a better place to be in. Like, A, just for your own mental health, and then B, for like the outcome. Like, if you go into something super stressed, the outcome is, it's harder. Right? So hopefully that the work we did helped you kind of be calmer, I think. And just and connecting with your friends and other colleagues, and everything that you did set you up for success. So Hawaii was your number 1 school?
Yeah, it was my number 1 school.
And that's where you chose to go?
Yeah. But I would say this whole like process is it got really interesting in the way that I actually ended up falling in love with Boston. Maybe even a little bit more. But they had a long wait list actually, so I didn't make it off. But it was so nice to be able to like connect and network with like the professors, and it was I think a really special program in the sense that they had a activist focus, clinical psych program. So they talk about like, like how do you want to be part of this like larger society given your profession, and what actions you want to take.
Nice.
So yeah, I that was the part that drew me into it. And so I think for Hawaii, like, I the larger system, I guess the program isn't built with that focus, but I've heard from one of the graduate students that actually my advisor is planning to move towards a more social justice focus.
Yeah, and so that's another thing too, is like people view these programs as static, and they're not, right? They always evolve and change and grow, and you guys are a big part of that. The PhD students push a lot of the agenda, so like it's really cool to see that kind of happen. So I'm excited for you. Okay, so what was where were you before the Fearless Grad program, and like where are you now?
I was honestly not sure like if I should be applying. It felt too scary, like, to be applying again. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure why, even though like I had already gone through it 2 rounds. Like the 3rd round just felt like this was too much. It was too scary. I did not have it in me.
And now
it's just like, now it's wow, like I could actually do that, and dreams do come true if you shed some blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, blood, sweat, and tears. Yes. And just you being yourself, like you getting more comfortable and just crushing it. Okay, so you were scared. So then why did you decide to like invest in yourself with this program? Like you could have, spent money on like a vacation or nice clothes, or like why'd you decide to do this?
Yeah, I wouldn't, I think, because I didn't know what else I really wanted to do. I don't know. I really wanted to have kind of like a goal that I could focus on, and I wasn't happy about where I was. Like I knew what I wanted to do isn't just to like practice as a clinician at that point. So I knew like I couldn't just do a master's degree, and I knew I didn't want to stay in Michigan for the rest of my life, and that my license only allowed me to do it there. And so I was like, okay, I either reapply to some master's and become a clinician again, which is like not ideal for me, or I would have to take another stab at applying to PhD program. And so yeah, I was like, I need to keep myself accountable and some kind of motivation. And yeah, that's why I had signed up instead of like using the money elsewhere.
Yeah. And for me, like as a woman, it feels hard investing in myself, but like we are important. Your goals are important. And like obviously getting a fully funded position, like this is it's a very good investment to get on with your goal and your career and have the life that you want. But yeah, you have to also make that active decision, which yeah, it's not like nothing just like fell in your lap, right? What do you think the most like valuable part of the program was for you?
Honestly, like meeting with you like every week and going over like kind of like the brainstorms and the activities that I did on the side, like figuring out which programs I wanted to go to, and like which job, like what kind of job I would end up wanting.
Would you recommend the Fearless Grad program to others?
Yeah, I would.
What would you tell yourself a year ago, right? When you were in this like low stressful point, what would you tell yourself?
I really want to tell myself to be fearless. Like at the end of the day, like I know, like I know myself like then wouldn't listen to it, but like what I would tell myself. Like I think I really got here today. Like other than the hard work that I put in, and that like the support that I got from people around me, I really think it's the sense of not necessarily, I guess, without fear, but having fear and doing it anyway.
Oh my God, that's perfect. That's perfect. Because we all have that. Like nobody is like, right, you'd have to be a robot to have no fear. Like we're not robots, but
yeah.
But we keep going, and that makes perfect sense. Okay. All right. Anything else you want to share about your journey or the PhD process or anything?
I really love like your energy, Nally, and I wish I had attended more of the Q&A talks, because like honestly, throughout this journey, like there were so many times where I told people that I wanted like to do my PhD, and they were like, are you sure? Like it's not a good idea. Like it's a lot of work, and I'm like, yeah, I know it's a lot of work. Like, but it's a lot of work in like different fields and like different jobs. I think it's about like what you want, and like how much do you think this is worth it. And like you said, it opens up a lot of doors, especially for like people of color and as women. Like there are other ways, right? But I think it's one of maybe, I don't know, the quickest way,
Yeah.
most efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I hadn't thought about this way. Yeah, it's a lot of work to do a PhD, but it's a lot of work to do anything. Like to go to work, 9 to 5 every day is a lot of work. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you're sitting on the couch eating bonbons. Like, so I'd rather put my work towards something that I want versus like, okay, this thing that I don't really care about. So
See, it's quite sad that the kind of people who are deterring people to like kind of go away from doing a PhD are actually ones that are like right in the midst of it. Like, 'cause
yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense though, because right, like the middle is always the hardest part of anything, right? Like if you're running a
Mm,
marathon or whatever. So like, yeah, that's why I recommend talking to current students,
mm,
but also like, people like us on the other side are also
mm.
nice because while you're in it, yeah, if you would have talked to me in the middle of it, I might have been like, just go work at McDonald's. Who knows? Like just because it gets busy, it gets like a lot.
Yeah.
Also, the people like are in a position of privilege, right? Because they're doing
Hmm.
something that they really wanted to do. They're, not going in debt to do it. They're and like, yeah, you're right. It's like, well, you get all the opportunities, and
Hmm.
to say not to do it is, yeah, it can be tricky.
Right. I think it is just kind of also like keeping in mind of like where those people are, where they're coming from.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and
mean,
maybe like normalizing that it will get super hard. Maybe like you will doubt yourself in the program, but like that's that's kind of part of the process.
yeah, I think there's highs and lows of anything, but
Mm,
the PhD is so, right, you push so much of it that
mm.
it can feel like the PhD is you, which it is
Yeah,
which it is not, right? So we
yeah.
have to remember that too, that like we are not our work, we are not like our worth is not our papers, or
Mm,
like
mm,
it's a hard thing to keep in mind, but
mm.
definitely keep that in mind.
Oh, I totally agree, and I think that's one of the things that had like led me to have more of like a peace of mind and being more relaxed. It's like, yeah, this is I am applying for a PhD, but this isn't like my life. Like, this is not me.
Yes, ma'am. Good, good, good. Thank you,
Yeah.
Stephanie.